very soon. But firstly, I want to let you know about these awards for West Australian of the Year, which of course then goes on for Australian of the Year for 2022. The nominees have just been announced. They're all up across the different categories, 16 West Australians. But in the big one, the West Australian of the Year, there are just 4 finalists, and one of them is going to chat to us now. The best bit about these finalists is they're not necessarily household names. They're people doing great work in our community, and Paul Litherland is one of those. G'day, Paul.
Hey, Mark. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Congratulations, firstly.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I think it's a big surprise, but it's just great to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just tell our listeners that you were a police officer for 20 years and you've been serving the community all up for around 27. Tell us about the particular area of expertise you went into in the police force, because that's pretty relevant to what you're doing now.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I was, for the last 6 years of my career, I was working at the Tech Crime Investigation Unit here in Perth, and we dealt with a whole pile of stuff, scams, cyberbullying, fallout from nudes and all that sort of stuff. So I found at that stage, around 2008, 2009, there was, I suppose, very limited resources out there for parents and kids to help themselves and help their kids. And so I started getting out and doing a few presentations actually to my kids' schools, and then bang, before I knew it, I'm 5 or 6 years later, I was up to about 400 schools and decided to start my little business. So, working well.
And what is that? What do you do now?
I'm basically get out to schools cyber safety education. So I'm running a business called Surf Online Safe, and a number of your listeners will know me because I do pop on a show a fair bit, but just getting out to schools as often as I can and organisations just to give my experience working in that area, and more importantly, giving them tips and hints in regards to how to minimise risk online and the trends I'm seeing.
Scary question, though, that parents probably don't want to know the answer to is what sort of a risk are our kids and young people at these days with the internet?
Oh, man, it's rising and it's continuing to evolve. The thing is, what I've found quite significantly, having a young son at that stage of my own, mate, is your playgrounds and my playgrounds as kids, mate, was so different. So our kids are now playing in areas that they never would have done 10 or 15 years ago. So those risks are increasing significantly. And Cyber Safety Week's just started this week today. So we have good opportunities to hear some stories, and it's just trying to get that message out to our kids as much as I can, to sort of give them knowledge of those risks and how they can sort of minimise them. That's what I'm all about, realistically.
Yeah, how timely is this when you say, Cyber Safety Week kicks off today. You just happen to have been nominated for West Australian of the Year. But Paul, tell us, you're talking about targeting kids. What about parents? Because a lot of people who didn't have this sort of technology, or it was all just very new, I guess they need a lot of education as well.
Yeah, and most parents are pretty good. They're trying to get on board, but that gap or that divide between what our kids know and what our kids are using, Mark, is such a massive gap between parents not knowing or not being aware. So many parents are trying, but it just goes too quick. I mean, I'm in the middle of this industry, mate, and it just goes so quick. It's hard to keep up. So I do really have strong empathy for parents and educators, because it's difficult to keep up the speed, and this is why my education to the kids is so important. And I do run, obviously, parent sessions every week, but it's just trying to get that divide closed, and I think I'm having some good success doing that, and myself and other professionals around Australia as well.
How do you keep up with it? I mean, you obviously have the experience from the police force as well, where you were in this technology crime unit, but then, as this just evolves and gets scarier and scarier, how do you keep up with all that?
Just listening to my audiences as well. I mean, I survey a lot of my kids. I'm up to over 300,000 students I've spoken to in Australia over the last 11 years now, 10 years. Wow. So it's continuing to listen to them, to feed off them, because it's not just coming out to schools and going, don't do this, don't do that. It's really engaging with them and taking the time to sit down with them and go, what are the trends you're seeing? And this is why I have so much success, I think, at times, because kids will come up and say, oh, Paul, you're so right, you're so spot on, and then I'll expand that information by asking them further questions. So it's so important to remain at that coalface, because our kids and it sounds corny, but our kids are the ones who are going to make the change, and they're starting to do that with organisations such as Facebook and Instagram. They're pushing away. So we're starting to see our teenagers now who are actually starting to make cultural change in regards to how they use the internet, and that's what I'm proud of and hang my hat on in regards to that, in regards to education.
Well, it's a great story, and part of the story, I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but back in 2004, you had this horrible motorbike accident, and you were told you'd never walk again, you'd never be able to work again, and here you are. It's part of your inspiring story, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was a pretty terrible time. I got hit on the freeway from an inattentive driver as I was assisting another bogged motorist, and yeah, that stuffed me up a fair bit. For 7 years I was in rehab, and I still suffer quite badly today, but it was a horrible time, but it's just a matter of, okay, I just had to move on with it, and this is why I found this little niche that gave me an opportunity to sort of take my focus away from my injuries, and yeah, it's just taken off from there, and it's really helped me sort of by helping others not focus on so much on what I was going through, but to sort of help others out, and that's realistically what I'm about, and this is why I'm pretty honoured about receiving this nomination, because it sort of reflects on that work, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's certainly well deserved. Paul, thanks for talking to us about it today. Congratulations again, and best of luck with the big judging early in the new year.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks so much, and all the very best to you and your listeners, mate. All the best. And to Gareth as well, congratulations on his new arrival. Well done.
Good on you, Paul. Yeah, Gareth will be back next Monday. Paul Litherland there, cyber safety education and campaigner, former copper of 20 years, doing great work in the community, trying to protect our kids, and now a finalist in Western Australian of the Year. That's pretty good stuff. All right, 16.